Frauen wird fast immer aus Liebe gemordet.
Im normalen Leben sind die Gründe meist profaner. Macht und Geld.
Und muss mit absoluter Priorität behandelt werden. Sie verstehen das vielleicht nicht, aber es handelt sich um einen der berühmtesten Künstler unserer Zeit. Und der ist hier in Venedig, in unserer Stadt, umgebracht worden.
Ich habe gehört, dass du den Fall Wellauer übernimmst.
Er war sehr eitel, aber er war auch der größte Dirigent, mit dem ich je zusammengearbeitet habe.
Wissen Sie was, Poletti? Ich glaube, ich sollte Ihnen den Fall abnehmen. Ich werde jemand anderen darauf ansetzen.
I was in the dressing room at La Fenice with Gabriele Ferro, he's a Sicilian conductor, usually of bel canto. He and his wife and I were there because he was conducting La Favorite, the French version of Donizetti's La Favorita, with Shirley Verrett. And during an interval in a rehearsal, we were in the dressing room, and somehow we started speaking about another conductor whom neither of them liked, personally or professionally. And there followed an escalation, which has now become an Italian word, un escalation. And we found ourselves with him dead in the dressing room. And the idea came to me that it would be a very good idea for a murder mystery to find all, with his tux and his starched shirt and his little bow tie. The idea of writing a book had never occurred to me until I got the idea then. And I thought, yeah, let me see if I can do that. And so knowing nothing except from what I had learned by inference from having read so many of these while I was in graduate school, because I didn't have a television, and I think in many ways reading murder mysteries is akin in terms of intellectual energy to watching television, or as television was 25 years ago. I wrote the book in about 8 months, and then it sat in a drawer for a year until a friend nagged me into sending it off to a competition in Japan, which it won. And then I was given a 2-book contract by an American publisher, which required that I write a second book, which had not been my thought when I wrote the first book. It's all, and I think that's why I seem, but am, cavalier about this, because it was nothing I ever agonized over. It was nothing I ever really wanted. It was just something that happened. I'm delighted that it did, but I can have a certain kind of emotional distance from it. It's great fun, but it's not the be-all and the end-all and the purpose of my life. I feel almost as though I have to apologize for being genetically disposed towards happiness. I come of happy people. My parents were pretty happy people, particularly my mother. And so my default mechanism really is to be cheerful. I wake up at 6 o'clock in the middle of this terrible world we inhabit, and I'm cheerful. All I need is coffee, and then I'm even more cheerful because I'm sort of jet-propelled into cheerfulness. And I think that comes of coming of happy people. And so his relationship as the progenitor of a happy family comes from my observation as a member of a happy family. The ideas come primarily from either gossip or something I'm told or something I read in the papers. Venice is a very small city. There's only fewer than 54,000 residents. So everybody pretty much knows everybody else or can find out about everybody else because it's a very incestuous city. And so once I think of some mischief, to use the word again, I start a book with the idea of this crime having been committed. And then as Brunetti gets involved in the crime and tries to find out why the crime was committed, I just follow the path that I guess my imagination leads me to. I don't plan them, I don't have an outline. I really don't think about them much when I'm not actually working on them. So the process is really a kind of instinctive sense of what probably would have happened in these circumstances. It's very vague and I'm being very unclear, but it's one that has worked for 28 books, and so I don't question it, I just follow the path. I've been doing this for 28 years, which is a long time. And Brunetti has not aged more than about 10 years in this time, nor have his children, nor has his wife. And so the series doesn't really work as a series because the reader is not conscious of any serious time change because there's very little carbon dating. I seldom make references to historical events or to living people or living politicians. And so one can jump into the series with no fear of not understanding what's going on. He's always going to be a happily married man with a very attractive, intelligent wife with 2 nice kids, and with a varied assortment of people with whom he works. Some he likes, some he doesn't. The crimes change from book to book, but the ambiance and the place, the sense of place doesn't change much. And I like that because I don't want to have to deal with the problems that should ensue after 28 years. His children should be adults by now, and he should be a great-grandfather, but he's not. So he's kind of kept in amber. And maybe that's an image of Venice, because Venice doesn't change much. You can look at buildings and see that what they looked like 1,000 years ago or what they looked like 500 years ago. They don't change. The city doesn't change much, nor does Brunetti change much.
Venice is the setting for all of Donna Leon's novels. The U.S. writer has lived for 30 years in the Italian lagoon city. Her detective stories have been translated into 34 languages and have made her world famous. Who's your personal hero?
Admiral Lord Nelson. I find him such an admirable, courageous, noble man. I've always liked him.
What's a big temptation for you?
Big temptation? Chocolate and pistachio ice cream.
What's your life philosophy?
Have fun. Really have fun.
What drives you bananas?
Noise. Really, noise everywhere. We live in a world in which there's noise. There's people with their telefonini on trains everywhere. There's television everywhere, in the post office. There's noise in stores. There's noise in restaurants. Why can't we just stop it and live a quiet life? That's why.
Well, it was successful. So did you then, did you expect to continue writing another book about Brunetti, or was this?
No, it was a one-off.
No, right?
But then HarperCollins, I think it was, asked for a second book. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And then they asked for 2 more. And then it was too late to say no. And I just got into the habit of writing a book a year because it was fun. And it remains enormous fun to write these books because, as I suppose is evident, they have become, in a sense, more unhinged as time passes. The first books were really crime books, where the bloodhound Brunetti went after fresh meat, but they've become much more discursive as time passes. And there's much more said that has absolutely nothing to do with the murder at hand, or with the crime at hand. And I find that that's the kind of stuff I would rather write.
And often justice is, it's not a concrete thing. I mean, justice is effected in Donna's books in various ways, but not necessarily traditional ways.
Good.